All right, Yahoo Fantasy Baseball, Tucson Toros Week 5 recap. We're going to take a look at Bronx Bombers versus Lucky in one of the most heated rivalries in the league. Last year, this was a very interesting story between these two teams. Lucky actually defeated Bombers twice in the regular season, pretty much had Bombers' number. And the Bombers was actually a very bad team in the regular season last year. And then the consolation championship comes around. Bombers makes a run through the consolation playoffs all the way to the championship and actually picks up a win over Lucky in the game that mattered most. So this rivalry is definitely a heated one. Definitely rivals the Red Sox and Yankees when it comes to rivalries. This week, Bombers came out on top. Bombers picks up the first regular season win against Lucky for that team ever in decisive fashion. 7-3 was the final in this battle. Biggest win of the week for any team. Bombers now 22-25-3, flirting with that 500 mark and getting back into contention. Lucky falls to 15-32-3 overall, off to a rough start for that team. It's the first regular season win ever against Lucky. As I mentioned, Bombers also wins for the first time this season, while Lucky remains winless overall. Bombers tied highs in RBIs, saves, Ks, and had the best whip of the year. So definitely a fantastic week for Bombers overall. Lucky had highs in homers and RBIs as well as Ks. Also tied for the best whip for that team all season, but didn't win that category. And had record low in stolen bases this week. Lucky has had 2 wins. There's an interesting stat. Lucky has had 2 wins in the pitching category, wins. 2 wins every week this year. All 5 weeks, 2 wins. It's really strange to have the exact same number of wins that many weeks in a row at any point in the season. So just kind of interesting stat there. Bronx Bombers took 3 of 5 in hitting and 4 of 5 in pitching. A lot of the categories were really close though, so it wasn't like Bombers walked all over Lucky in this one. It was definitely a tight matchup. It's just all the categories seemed to fall Bombers' way by week's end. Lucky brought the lumber this week though. Definitely did well behind the plate as far as homers and RBIs go, but lost an excellent battle on average as well. Both teams hit over 300, but Bombers was able to come out on top in that one too. So again, really close battle. Lucky definitely fought all the way there, but Bombers was able to squeeze out just enough wins to get a decisive victory. Tight battle in runs this week went to Bombers. 12 runs alone from Ryan Braun. The Brewers, as some of you probably know, did really well against the Diamondbacks this weekend. Ryan Braun definitely benefited from the road trip to Arizona. 12 runs alone. 3 homers from Rod Barajas again. A strange source of power for Bombers. Bombers has been getting a lot of homers out of Rod Barajas. The rest of the team, though, just 3 homers. So Barajas matched the rest of the team in home run production. David Ortiz, though, looks to be back on track for Bombers, putting up David Ortiz-like numbers finally after a really rough start to his season. All players that were used got at least 1 run. That's definitely important to see that dispersion of production on the offense. So Bombers' offense was definitely clicking this week. Lucky had an excellent trio in the outfield to combat that. Scott Posednik, Alex Rios, and J.D. Drew. The 3 of those outfielders combined for 19 runs, 5 homers, and 19 RBIs. Excellent stats from the 3 outfielders. Definitely missed Joe Mauer this week, though. Mauer's been dealing with a foot injury, was out all week. Up until Sunday, I believe Saturday and Sunday, Mauer came back for pinch hit and DH duty, but didn't really contribute in any fantasy production way. So definitely missed Mauer, and Asdrubal Cabrera was also out all week for Lucky. So 2 injured players in the lineup all week and not contributing. Definitely hurt that team offensively. In pitching, Lucky still has J.P. Howell, who's injured, and an inactive Jim Johnson in the lineup, not on the bench, actually in the lineup. So Lucky's going to struggle with those 2 players taking up a couple active slots. An excellent week, though, from Jabba Chamberlain. 2 saves and a 0 ERA for the embattled Yankees reliever. Definitely great production out of that pitcher there. Decent week from Chad Galls and Jonathan Papelbon as well. The bullpen seemed to do pretty well for Lucky this week. Bad week, though, for George Sherrill. Kind of canceled out some of the production there for the rest of the bullpen. The only other pitchers on that team, A.J. Burnett and C.C. Sabathia, both picked up wins. So Lucky actually had decent production from the pitching staff, but having an inactive player and a player on the DL definitely hurts that team when it comes to picking up wins, picking up saves, picking up Ks. It can actually help in some ways with whip and ERA, but if the other players don't perform that week and you don't have extra pitchers to try to bring down those numbers, that can hurt as well. So it's definitely something that team's probably going to want to take a look at going forward. The lack of depth in pitching basically causing issues for the Lucky pitching staff. Bombers had an excellent contribution this week from Kevin Gregg. 3 saves out of Gregg this week. Also, Scott Baker was on this week. 2 wins, 14 Ks, and a 0.8 whip. Fantastic week from Scott Baker. A lousy week, though, from Seattle pitcher Ryan Rowan Smith. A 12.46 ERA for the starter from Seattle. Definitely kind of inflated the ERA numbers there. Also, a mixed bag from Jonathan Broxton. 2 saves this week for the Dodgers pitcher for Bronx Bombers, but a 6 ERA. Kind of struggled there. Picked up the saves, but didn't really look good overall. Going forward, though, Bronx Bombers now sits 10th in the overall standings. Just 4 games out of 6th place. Remember, 6th place, the cutoff for the playoffs. So 4 games out of 6, looking good. Gets Waveland and Sheffield next week. That's a 7th place team, so that's a very important battle for those 2 squads. Lucky's now 15th in the standings, so off to a really rough start. Remember, the top 12 get postseason action, so got to get into the top 12 to do anything postseason-wise. Sitting 15th in the standings, 6.5 games out of 12. Gets 13th place Whittles next week. Whittles was 2-0 last season against Lucky. So while this week Lucky lost to a team that team had not lost to at all last year in the regular season, now going to have to do the opposite and reverse the roles, try to pick up a win against a team that team was unable to beat last year in the standings.